Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to first introduce myself. My name is Suzanne Crudison. I'm the president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the Kappa Beta Omega chapter, situated here in Vallejo, California. I want to thank all of our guests that are here in person and all of the ones who are joining us online. Welcome. Today we have an exciting program for you. The title of our table talk is Women of Color in Politics. So I'm going to turn it over to, first of all, we have three dynamic women who are involved in politics throughout our community, throughout Solano County. And I'm so excited. We are also excited to hear about their journey, their advice, and their tips for our future leaders. But right now, I'm going to turn it over to two other dynamic women, Ms. Hazel Wilson and Ms. Carmelita Nix, who will be moderating our program.
And good afternoon. So while we get started, the first thing we would like to do is have our three panelists introduce themselves, if you could, please.
Well, hello, and hello, everyone. I am Wanda Williams, Solano County Supervisor. I'm actually the first African-American woman to be elected to the Board of Supervisors. And so it's really an honor and a pleasure to be with you today.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. LaTanya Young. I am a board member, trustee for Vallejo City Unified School District, District 4. I am also a proud member of Kappa Omega. I am also a 40-year veteran of Vallejo City Unified School District in all levels. That's teaching all the way up to administration. And I am just so happy to be on this distinguished panel.
Hello, my name is Kay Patrice Williams. I am on the Fairfield City Council, and my day job, I'm a businesswoman. I run two businesses, and I am just thrilled to be here.
Thank you. And I'd like to introduce myself. I'm one of your moderators for this afternoon. My name is Carmelita Nix, and I am also a very, very proud member of Kappa Beta Omega. And I'd like to pass it over to my beautiful co-host, moderator.
Good afternoon. I am Hazel Wilson. I am a founding member of Kappa Beta Omega chapter, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and a former 14-year school board member of the Vallejo City Unified School. Thank you.
So, after those introductions, how about we jump right into the paneling questions? Would you like to start the first one?
Okay. What motivated you to enter politics? And that's for all the. We'll begin.
Thank you. So I knew about 25 years ago, I knew that I wanted to run at some point. And at the time, I had a toddler at home, and matter of fact, he wasn't a toddler, he was one. And so he just turned 21. And I knew, and I said, well, let me get ready. I don't want to run with a one-year-old at home. Let me get ready. So I thought about it, and I said, I want to have, what type of degree do I need? I had a BA, so I went to law school. And I went to the law school not to become an attorney, because I felt like that would give me the skill set to, when I go into elected office, that would give me the skill set and the tools to do a great job. The funny part of that was so long ago, and I thought, you know what, I'll run when I'm about 50. So I was nearing 50. I'm 53 now. I was nearing 50, and I was like, oh, where did all this time go? Okay, it's ready. It's time is ready. So really, it was that 20 years to be ready for that moment. So that's what my pathway looked like.
Dr.
My motivation, kind of like an arm twisting. I got a little twist from Flora Wilson. I got a little twist from Joe Jones. I got a major twist from my community that I served for 40 years as in all levels as vice. But my main motivation was that over the years of that 40 years, I went in superintendent, state takeover, interims, and the whole 9 yards. I noticed that I had a clear understanding that our educational system structure of it needed to be fixed. And who but me, knowing all the infrastructure that I had to go through, would be the best person to do that, sitting on a board. So that was what kind of motivated me. I had the inside view of what was going on, and I saw no progress in what was going on in the inside view. Our children, our children of color, were not progressing like they should be for the last 20 years. And we still didn't fix the infrastructure of the educational system in order to address that issue. So that was my motivation, along with the arm.
Well, I don't know how I can follow up after that, but well, for me, honestly, I was actually enrolled in college at the time. I was attending UC Davis as a political science major. And I was also, volunteering my time. At that time, I was chairing, this is in 2017, I was chairing Measure S in Suisun City. And, as time went on, I realized there was a need in my city. And I could sit around and complain, or I could do something about it. And that was one of my motivations, was really just getting out there and doing the work. Now, granted, I was in college at the time, a mother, a wife. So there was a lot for me to consider and take into consideration. But the needs of my community just continued to draw on me. And so that really compelled me to run. And so that's why I originally ran for city council. Yeah. But, it's just something that I love doing. I love helping others. And if we don't get out there and do the work, then nothing's going to happen. And representation does matter. So that was my motivation.
With this motivation, what has this experience been like as working as a politician? What is your been were motivated, and now you're in the position? We'll begin with Dr.
My experience is that you come into a structure that is already comfortable. So it was my job to make them uncomfortable so they could be comfortable. And through that experience, I got some, kickback. But in all, they, our board now that sits the Lael Unified School District is educational mindset. They have an educational mindset, and it's directed toward educating our community, educating our children, and making sure that gap is addressed. We have a strategic plan that we had never had, and it's now been implemented with whistles, checks, balances, in order to make sure the programs that we put in place are assessed. The experience that I had, that there was no assessment, no accountability for those programs. So therefore, yeah, your programs is gonna fail because you have no way of knowing that it's going to be effective unless you have a strategic plan in place. So some of the battles were overcoming the mindset of the good old boys. And this is what we're going to do. We're just going to rubber stamp everything that comes through here without looking at the data, whether it is successful to our minority kids in our district, whether it's a ballot program for our community and our parents that are involved in this community. That is very important. That was part of my platform, that I made sure that everybody was involved, because it takes a village. That's a cliche, but it does take a village to raise a child. Some of my other experiences were, when I go to this California Board of Education, I'm usually the only black woman in the room. It's predominantly white males or white women. And I'm wondering, okay, you're out here making the policy. So, but it's affecting our minority kids. So I'm wondering, well, what's going on in the local level? Why aren't we electing more black officials on the school board? So, that was something that I am very passionate about, is sustainability and succession plans, that we make sure that that's put in place so we can groom ours to come and take our place. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, as a board of supervisor, there's 58 counties. And when I was elected, when I went to training, I walked in the room and I was the only black woman there, only black person there. And then I soon learned that I'm the second African American woman currently serving in all of the state of California. And so I'm the only one in Northern California for now. Hopefully we'll have more. And there's Holly Mitchell in Southern California. And so we have these 58 counties, and out of the 58 counties, there's about approximately 290 Board of Supes. There's 8 that are black, just 8. And I can tell you my experience being as a supervisor, it's been a journey. I'm not going to say that it was just easy. There is definitely a glass ceiling that is there. And there's always going to be pushback so that you don't elevate to the next level. But you have to persevere anyway. And so that has been my experience. But even more so, even though for the first time we have a female majority on the Board of Supervisors, I do still see that the men dominate most of the committees that actually produce and create change. And so those are some things I have experienced, and I know we need to continue to work on the change. I have to be the voice to say no and push back. But I can also say I've had some great experiences too, being on the Board of Supervisors and helping my community, creating policies. I have my first policy being processed now with staff. But most importantly is educating and teaching others exactly what does a supervisor do. Most people don't know. They think I still oversee the city, and I don't. I oversee unincorporated Solano County. But I can say that transitioning from council to the Board of Supes is really different, because you're moving from municipality and then you're moving now into county. And so there's some similarities, but they're not all the same. And so for me, those are my experiences have been. But when I was a city council member, I was able to really introduce a lot of different programs into my community. And I was really much so connected to the community, and I worked very closely. And so making that transition, it's a change for me. It's a learning curve. I'm not going to say that it isn't. It's definitely a learning curve, but it's a great one because I get to put my stamp on things and I get to be that voice. They're on the Board of Soups. I get to speak up for black and brown people all the time and remind them, how things, think about this in a different way. And so I realize I bring a different thought process to this policy making that we're doing right now. So that has been my experience, and it's been a great one. So thank you for letting me share that.
So I have also been in office for about 6 months. And it is, I will say that I was what I thought it would be like. It's so much different. First, I will say, admittedly, that I was very intimidated going in. I have, law degree, I have degrees, I've run businesses, but this was such a new and different space. So first, getting up on a dais, it was like there seemed to be kind of a rhythm to the city council. There were three, actually all but two of us were brand new. Everyone else had been there. So they had this rhythm, and I came. I took the seat of Chuck Tim, who had been there for a decade. So at first, I was like, how do I fit in his shoes? And then about 3 months in, it clicked that I'm not coming in his shoes. I'm bringing my own scuffy Converses, and I'm going to thump it. And so there was this confidence level, and people could see it because I was just so comfortable that me coming with my expertise, my practical knowledge, my experience in life, and layering that on reading my packets. And by the way, so that's a whole nother experience. So our packets are delivered, and they could be between 3 inches and 6 inches. This last packet was 1,000 pages, and I got it on a Friday, and it needed to be read and understood by Tuesday morning in order for me to talk to my city manager and get clarification. And they know they need to talk to me for at least an hour because it's tabbed. I got tabs everywhere. I need to understand. I'm going to ask questions. I'll let them know what questions I'm going to bring to the dais and ask them so they know. I know I'm known as the person that's going to ask questions, probably hard questions, and I say what I'm thinking. I don't have a whole lot of filter. And I think that's interesting too. I think I come with no filter because of the way I won. I won, 21-21 was the votes, but it was 12 votes ahead. I only won with a 12-vote narrow margin. And there's something about that. There's something about that clicks on when you're on a dais, when you're working for the people. You know you deserve to be there. You know that you worked hard to be there. You narrowly got in there. So whether it's bumpy or smooth, there's just something about it. And so I go in there tussling, and I say what I want. For example, I went on this, so some of it is reading your packet, understanding that. The other is understanding the city, because we're governing the city. The city votes us in. And we have 2 employees, the city council, the city manager, and the city attorney. And then the city manager is the manager of the whole city. Say that's 500 people. I think it's 410 or something. So that's how it goes. And so there's just something about coming in that narrow for me that, like, I come from it's like this graciousness. I feel so grateful and so honored. Oh, but this is what I was going to tell you. So I had to learn all of the departments. So I go on city tours. So, for example, I went on the fire city tour. And, like, this is a great group. But then it was weird because it was all white men. And I saw the one woman, and she was kind of giving me, that look when other women give you. She was giving me the look when I was doing the tour, and I'm looking at her, and I'm like, what is she trying to tell me? And so I go to a few different fire stations, and I'm like, they all look the same. And they're great. They're great guys, but they're just all white men. What is happening? So I go back to my desk at home, and I send an email to the city manager, and I'm like, why is this department so white? Why? And to be able to ask that of the city, of the departments, like, I just got there. Who didn't ask that question before? So you've got to have the confidence to speak up when something's not right. And when you see where you are, like, I'm voted in from the people. I don't have to answer to anybody. I'm going to ask those questions that make you uncomfortable. And that is the biggest and the most amazing thing. You know you make a difference because of who you are. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have a question for you. What are some of the key challenges women face when entering politics? And let me throw this in. We already know we wear multiple hats as women. So please include that as part of your challenge. Moms, businesswoman, you have your husbands. Please share. What are those challenges? Dr. Young, will you please start?
Some of the challenges, the number one challenge that I see is that you don't have a political machine behind you. You don't have a war chest. A prime example of how people get organized was when Oprah Winfrey she got together, I say, maybe 10 or 20 influential friends that she had in order to back Kamala Harris and put a war chest together so she would have the money and do the advertisement and all that. That's some of the challenges. Money. We often see that see signs out there that cost money. Things like signs. Also need to understand that need a group of people that will get together and back you 100% all the way through the process. You can't just start lip service and not finish. You have to be a continual, a cheerleading section for that candidate, and making sure that, you're out there for that candidate. I think and I'll reiterate, biggest problem is money. But in that process, another problem is that we second guess ourselves. Whether we are worthy of doing that, because we are a mother, we are a wife, we are all those things, and we have a tendency not to pursue our passion. Because if we can multitask all those things, we can multitask a political position as Black women. We know how to multitask. We were brought up to multitask everything and make it work. Thank you.
I know I'm next. Well, I'm just going to add on to what Dr. Young has said. Finances is important. When my consultant said, well, I need you to be a viable candidate. And I'm like, okay, well, what is that? And he said, well, you need to be able to raise this money. And so becoming that viable candidate, you do need money. And a lot of challenges that's for African American women is really having the wherewithal to raise the money. Because I'm going to be honest, the African American community doesn't necessarily understand wholeheartedly why giving to the campaign is important. And especially if you don't live in their district. I heard that all the time. Well, I know you don't even live in my district. But that doesn't change anything. I still need support and help. So that is true. But also what we have to look at and understand, it takes about 7 acts before a woman would say yes to run. And women tend to wait to be asked in the first place. So if there's not an asked to the person, then they may not want to do it. And so that's one thing to overcome. 2, having that support kitchen. They call it a kitchen cabinet. You have to have support because there's going to be naysayers. There's going to be people that say you're not ready, you can't do it, all those things. And so you have to push beyond that. And I'm getting better from a cold. But in addition to that, you need your family support. You have to make sure, especially if you're married, you want your spouse to be there to support you because it takes a village. And you can't do it all by yourself. Excuse me. So those are some of the challenges that that women will face. And I want to say this because I think anyone thinking about running need to know, especially if you're elected on the local level, there's no big paycheck in that, okay? So you have to be willing to know you have to give up family time to commit yourself to study those agenda packets, attend events, those type of things. So I just think one of the things that those are some of the challenges that we will face as a woman, even as a man, but as a woman of color. Those are the challenges that you'll face to run for office. But that doesn't mean you don't do it anyway. You still, if you're called and you know that that is your calling in life, do it, get out there. Don't be afraid to do it. Will fear come? Of course. But that's why you have your kitchen cabinet to lift you up, to say, yes, you can do it. You got this. And most importantly, you're doing it because you care about your community. So regardless of the challenges that you're facing or the things that will be before you, you just have to press through it anyway.
Trying to figure out what all I'm going to share with you all. It goes from head to mouth sometimes. So I'm going to share that having family support is critical. I remember when I first was talking to my husband about running, and it was interesting because his first response, his first utterance was, who's going to cook for us? And I'm like, I don't have cook anyway. Like, what are we talking about? We're going to do it the same way we always do. But really what he was saying was he was uncomfortable. He was uncomfortable, and he didn't know what that would mean for him. He didn't know what that meant for the family. And so I had to I knew I had some work to do. I had to talk to him and make him feel comfortable. But I'm sharing that because you will find that people will say things to you because of their own comfort level. They don't feel comfortable. Well, what does that have to do with you? You gotta go above that. So the other thing that I wanted to share was I make on a city council $7.50 an hour, which is a raise from $3.50 an hour from the council as of January 1st. So January 1st, we got a raise to $7.50. And before that, they were making $3.50 an hour. So you have got to come up with a game plan in how to make money, how to make a living. This is not the type of thing where you're going to make a living, at least while you're doing it part-time. Now, it's different when you're on the supervisors because now you have a salary. So for me, part of my game plan for my household was I knew that I needed to make a viable strategy, do a viable strategy And so having businesses where that was fluid, that I didn't have to go in from 9 to 5, that type of thing, but I could work from home and run these businesses different times a day, hire people. So that became essential to make sure that my family was going to be okay through this wanting to serve. And I also say that even this city council, it takes a lot of time. So having that having that available time was needed because, I mean, you all know that part where you see us everywhere. So that's one element, going and making sure you're engaging with the community and you're accessible and all of that. But that homework time and that time with the different department heads and all that, that is very, very dense. In fact, with my $7.50 salary, I tell everybody, because I'm like, this isn't, that's not why we're doing it. It's not the money. So with my salary, my modest salary, I pay for my own newsletters in MailChimp. So that's, $350 a month. And also my team works on that. So they do that. That comes out of my salary. And if you see our calendars, I literally have the same person that works my calendar, my master calendar for my business, also does it for city council to make sure that it gels and if it has to be rescheduled or canceled. So that's where my salary goes right back out. So anyway, just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of the behind the scene. And I think I answered that full question. Did I miss anything? Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
What advice would you give women working off or getting,
Well, first and foremost, I'm going to say you need to know it's your call. You have to know you're called to do this because it does mean you have to give a lot of yourself and of your time. So that's the first thing I would recommend. 2, focus on where your strengths are. If you're great at being on a commission, start there. Be on a commission. Do that because you're still providing a service to your community. 1. 2, you have to have your family support, especially if you're married. I've watched a lot of people get a divorce, so you want to make sure that you are in alignment with your family. I'm thankful because for me, not only my husband on board, my daughter, my mother, I mean, my whole family go out and walk for me, okay? And you need a team. You have to be able to build consensus. That's also very important. And you have to be able to raise money. That's just, I mean, when I ran for city council, I had to raise $24,000 because my race was a very packed race. It's a race of 5. So you want to start thinking about, well, who can I ask to support me in this? But for the Board of Supervisors, I had to raise $200,000. Okay, so that's just night and day difference, right? Okay, Patrice can tell you that too. But it does take being able to not be afraid to ask people for help. We as women, we tend to, put that cape on and get out there and do things. But to run for office, you can't do it alone. It takes a village. It takes having people that really support you 100% because you're going to always run into people that tell you can't do it or you shouldn't do it or you're not ready. You're going to always have that. But you just have to be assured of who you are and that you're called. And I'm going to be honest, for me, I do depend on a higher power, period, so that I can press through. Because there's times when you want to cry. There's times when you want to give up. But I say, don't give up. Continue to press. and do the work. So those are the things I'm recommending for any woman thinking about running. And just because you have small children doesn't mean you can't run. That's where you really build on your support group. Those individuals that's going to always be there for you to encourage you and so that they can help you during the process. So those are some of the things I like to share. And most importantly, just be proud of the work you're doing, that you're even willing enough to put yourself out there. That takes a lot of courage. So just know that you are created for it. You can do it. And let me tell you this, if you lose one time, so what? Get back up, shake it off, and get right back out there until you do win that office or that seat that you're looking for. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I love it. Wanda, you saw how she got up in her seat? Tell me the question again. I don't remember. I got all worked up with Wanda.
What advice would you give to women of color who are considering running for office or getting involved in politics?
So, I am an introvert. I like to be in the back. I like to be in operations. I like to lead from the back. I love leading from the back. But to be an elected official, to be a candidate, you've got to lead from the front. And so I spent a lot of time getting over my introversion. And I only mention that because I think that might be more than just me. It's many of us, as women. So it's really doing a SWOT analysis on yourself and understanding where you're weak and figuring out how to get in front of it. You can't tell I'm an introvert today, but that took years. So, so find out what you're weak at and work through it. The other piece is the money. You've got to raise a lot of money, and whatever you're told that you need to raise as a white man or a white woman, okay, double it for us. We've got to do even more, and you've got to get comfortable making the asking for money. And I remember my last campaign, so I ran for Supervisor District 2, and it took me months to ask for, and I still raised a lot of money. I did a lot of small donations. I was real comfortable asking for $20.22. And so, and raised a lot of money that way, but you've got to get to that money fast, because if you don't, what you're going to find yourself doing is you're always behind. Oh, you got a mailer that needs to go out? I'm still trying to raise money for the mailer. Like I'm barely making, the mailer is due, it got to go out Monday. It won't go out till next week for me, because I don't have the money. So you've got to get in front of that money, got to get in front of that ask fast and early. The last thing that I want to share is some of us, especially when you're introverts, you're waiting to be asked. Nobody asked me. I said I'm running. And I remember it was a bit of an issue in some groups. They were like, you got to ask permission. I'm not asking permission. I'm doing it. I done did my papers. And so you have to have the confidence and the conviction that that is what you're supposed to do. You need to see yourself in that seat. You got to smell it. You got to taste it. You got to visualize it. And you got to run through that thing like a freight train. Thank you.
First of all, you're going to have a strong understanding of yourself. You're going to have to know who you are, what you stand for, what your passions are, what you will not compromise on, and on top of that, unapologetic. We have a tendency to be apologetic. This is the time that we are unapologetic. We have a mission and a passion, and we have issues that need to be addressed as Black women. Also, you need to do your homework. You need to know what it takes to be in this particular political seat. Or you need to make sure that you know the statistical data of your prior candidate, if there was a prior one, their track record. You need to do your homework. The other thing is you need to get involved. You need to do that grassroots. It's a grassroots that you need to put together in order to have the support you need. Show up when you're unexpected. Bring a chair. Hey, they can't tell you no. If they do say no, well, you always have an answer for it because you're unapologetic. You need to go in there with knowing yourself and knowing that you belong here just as well as they do. And you have a platform that you have to address because they're not addressing it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I have another question for the panel. What are some of the most important issues facing women in politics today? Let's start with you, Patrice.
You know, when I think of that question, I mean, we know the answers because we live our lives. So we know that right now, you know, we're thinking about our parents and our grandparents and what their lives look like. You know, we have families, we have children, we have grandchildren. So thinking about their lives. We're working families, we're business people. So we think about, it's about thinking about all these areas that already touch you. And you know, if you make those areas richer, better, it's going to lift the community in all of those areas.
Thank you.
Some of the important issues facing women in politics today, I can give you a list. Matter of fact, I'll give you some of the lists that I put down. On the local level, low-performing schools, crumbling health care system, overcrowded prisons, affordable housing, homelessness, mental illness, domestic violence. Those are some of the key issues. And that's just not nationwide, that's right here in our community. We have homelessness, we have problems with mental health. So those are some of the important issues that you as a candidate have to be aware of, and you have to do your homework. And you have to have some answers. How are you going to fix it? You have to answer the question, these are the issues, what am I going to do about it, and this is how I'm going to go about it. The when, the what, the why. Those are questions that you have to ask yourself, and you have to be able to give that to your public when they ask those questions, because they're going to ask it. They're going to ask those questions. Get involved in the local government as far as on commissions and stuff like that, because that's the main, I guess, the main way that you can see exactly how the system works. Because some of the problems stem from there. The rezoning of your district, sometimes it could be to our betterment, but most of the time it's not to our betterment as minority people in this community. It's for their betterment. So that's what, some of the most important issues I see in this community as a whole.
Thank you.
Well, I have to follow up behind these two amazing women, but I'm going to say first and foremost, there's a glass ceiling that African American women face in the political sphere. And I say that because first of all, we're not necessarily thought of in these other positions and roles. I have found, and just in my tenure as an elected official, that it's easier for African American women to run for the school board, and not putting down the school board. I'm just saying these areas in which they see us being. But once we say, okay, we're beyond the school board or the city council, that's when the opposition comes. Because at the local level, it's okay, yeah, you could be there. But when you want to elevate to higher levels, that's when the devaluing comes, the delegitimization of who you are as an African American woman or African American women in general. And we see this all the time. And when I say that, and I'm going to give an example. So when I was running for Board of Supervisors, there was an attack ad that went out on me, and it said I wanted a promotion. Well, this is not a regular 9-to-5 job where you got a supervisor. I'm running an election, so I'm looking to be elected, not promoted. And so you get to see where the devaluing becomes, and it happens in those spheres. And then, so those are the things that I see that affect African American women or women of color running for these other spaces. When you want to, and so let's use an example. Barbara Lee, she's running right now for Senate. She's struggling to raise as much money as her counterparts, even though she's, I feel, extremely capable for that role, but you're not always looked at in those spheres and spaces. We're constantly asking to be elevated because, let's be honest, African American women, we carry the party for the Democratic Party. We get out there, we put in those votes, but when it comes time for us to be elevated and put in positions of power, that's where we find that there's the pushback. And let's be honest, when you try to advance, it's predominantly white males in those spaces. And so you're not always looked at or thought of to be able to bring that, your contribution to the dialogue and to the thought process. And so like she said, you got to be unbought and unbossed. You got to definitely bring your chair to those spaces and know that you definitely belong in those spaces. And again, we have to go back to the money. I had over 300 donors to raise over $200,000. But my counterpart who was a white male, I think he may have only had 50, 60 people give him money. I mean, just think about that. So we have to work even harder just to get the funding source we need. So I'm going to say those are some of the primary issues and concerns that I see affecting women, especially women of color and black women in general.
Thank you so much.
As we look at Kamala Harris, an Alpha Kappa Alpha woman, how can we encourage more women to enter politics and take leadership roles in their communities?
All right, well, I'll go. As I look out right now in this audience of women, it's just really going up to you and saying, please consider running. We need your voice. We need you there. And if you're watching Zoom, we need you to step up and step out. We also need to make sure we're supporting one another. I cannot express that enough, that we really need to be able to support one another in those spaces, because if we don't support one another, then who is? If we can't turn to each other, then what are we doing? We have to be able to be there for one another. And those are some of the things I see. You know, I have looked at column, I think, wasn't Emerge kind of created because the vice president here? Oh, okay, well, okay, I won't put that out there. But we just have to continue to come together, band together, and help lift each other up, help us raise the dollars that's needed. Sign up and be a part of the campaigns. And if it's your campaign, then, hey, those that you've already helped, then you look to them to come back and help you too. So those are the things that we need to do to be able to encourage. And as we look to Vice President Harris and see what she's been able to accomplish, we don't want her to be the last one, or we got to wait 20, 30 years until we see someone next. So making those spaces, being willing to reach back and help another Black woman. Don't turn your back on her. Be there for her and encourage her. And that's what I'd like to share.
Okay, Patrice.
So for me, it's all in the training. And so it's, there's these amazing organizations out there. There's BWAPA, Black Women Organized for Political Action. As it turns out, I am the founder of the Solano Napa chapter. And if you want power, get 50 Black women in a room that are organized for political power, countywide. It's pretty powerful. Also, there's Emerge. Emerge is for Democratic women. So if you're a Republican woman, it won't work out. So Democratic women in California, they only do a class once a year, and many of us are Emerge grads. I see some of my Emerge grads in the room. Tiffany and Tanya, Cassandra, of course, Wanda, and hello, Vanessa and Vanessa. So we have some Emerge grads in the room. Powerful organization. They will drill into you what it means to be a candidate. But there are also other resources too. There's a group in Sacramento, and I'm hoping they come back. Is it PTI? BAPAC. It's BAPAC. They're in Sacramento, and it was Black men running this group, Rory Kaufman and James Sweeney, rest in peace. And they will give you the Black male experience into running. They tell you how it is. I've never experienced anything like that either. But that blending, it really works because you really get it from different aspects. Also, get involved in other people's campaigns. There's no better training than being in the weeds in a campaign and seeing how it navigates and seeing how different issues come up and how they're thought of, and the people that are on that kitchen cabinet that are thinking their way through issues and strategizing. It's almost like sitting at the feet of your elders. When I walked in and saw you, Miss Hazel, like I've been in rooms with her where she was I was actually, Tiffany Jones and I were at a table at her house and watching strategy happening just at your table, and I'm like, Tiffany, like, is this how that happens? Like it was the most amazing thing, and what they were doing was imparting strategy into us. There's nothing more powerful. If you're interested, that's what you should be doing, and especially if you're, I see our younger ladies here. I mean, especially at your age, if you're sitting at the table of Hazel Wilson now, oh, forget it. When you're ready to run, so that's what you want to do. So there are women that are black women, brown women that are running for office, ask to be in part of their campaign, and they want your youth voice as well. So you are of value, whatever age. We want to hear your voice, and we want you involved. Thank you.
Young?
Being an educational leader in this community for 40 years, I always had a passion for educating my community. I also have a passion for mentoring. Peer-to-peer mentoring. One way to foster the next generation is to mentor. We have a distinguished panel here. They're going to have to embrace mentoring someone to take their place. That's important, to mentor. Peer-to-peer mentoring of black women is invaluable because we have the knowledge, we have the experience, and we have common values that we can pass on. Success planning. Success planning is a key because if you don't plan and mentor the next person to take your position, you're left out there with nothing. You have to have a strategic success plan in place. And that goes with the mentoring of the next candidate that you're going to put your 100% behind. It's imperative because we have to groom our own. If we don't groom our own next generation, we're going to be out there lost in the wilderness wandering for the next 40 years. This is true. Or we're going to wind up with a whole bunch of unexpected candidacies running, and they might not be qualified. So it's very important that you put a succession plan in place and mentor people to be in that, especially the young generation. We're just occupying a seat right now. The young generation are our future. And we have to pull them in and make them understand how valuable politics and the seats that we should hold should stay of color. Thank you.
So I have one last question. I know it's not. That's why I'm going to ask it. When you have that moment of regret, or you feel like, why did I do this? Who did I really do this for? How did you pull yourself out? How did you say, you know what, I gotta be here? When those moments hit you, how did you pull yourself out? Patrice.
I have really dope friends. I have really dope friends. I did not win my first race. And so that happened, and next week it was the pandemic, and we were all sheltered in place. And I had to grieve that campaign. I put everything in it. I had less than $1 in my account. after that race. And I tell this all the time, and my husband's in the background, not me. So he knew not to put all his money in there, but I had. And there were, I mean, I was on the couch crying, depressed for a long time. It took me a minute to really pull myself out of there. And so the sisterhood that helped me win is also the sisterhood that picked me off the floor. And I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Can I have the question again, please?
How did you pull yourself out of a moment of regret or even depression or frustration to bring you back to where you are right now as a fighter for your community?
Well, I don't think I really experienced that. And I'm lucky because I'm part of this community. I have a support base. I'm very, 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 very lucky and blessed. When I was questioning things, I had my soror, Hazel Wilson, with the background that she has, 14. Told her, I can't give you that many. But she had the perseverance to give this community that many years on that board. I have my community that I've built relationships. So when I need to find something, especially in the young generation, I call on Tiffany. Or, somebody, or Shay, to pull me out of what I'm thinking. Am I thinking the right thing, or is this the right direction? So I'm lucky and blessed to be able to have that kind of relationship that I built for the 40 years that I was in the Vallejo Unified School District, dealing with the community, dealing with high expulsion rates with our minority kids, and eliminating that with due process that everybody is due. So I can't really say that I've been there. I know it's there, but I haven't experienced it because I have the blessings of my community and the man above.
Thank you.
Well, you said regret, or I've been fortunate enough to win all my races, but during my very first race, I lost my child. My son died. I had declared my candidacy in July, and that following August, he died. I regret not having more time with him. That I had to run my campaign from his hospital room. I think those things I do regret that. But I can honestly say that I had to draw upon who he was to me, how he touched my life, and I took that love and care and support that I put in him, and I put into my community. I really do, because I have a lot of love, and I care. And so I use that to propel me and to keep me going. And my faith. And there's been times that I've cried, especially when I was running for Board of Students. There was a lot of tears for me. But my faith and knowing who I am and remembering who I was gave me that strength to press through those hard times. And I realized in those instances, it made me stronger. It let me know I have dunamis power. I can do any and all things. But I have to believe in myself. Because sometimes people won't believe in you. But you got to believe in yourself. and know that you're more than capable and able of doing the work and getting out there for your community. So those are some things I regret in this process, but I have more joy than regret. I have more laughter and fun days than sorrow. So, and that's just who I am. It has shaped me to be the woman I am today, and I know that will continue. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all for being so vulnerable.
Can I just add
Yes, ma'am.
something?
Go ahead.
I will tell you, and I know I think I've typed it a few times, Wanda, but the campaign moment for me that's most impactful that I've ever had was when Wanda was running for office, and she needed to go and do the Democratic. You had to do a speech, and we were in Fairfield, and I think you had missed the original round. So then you were just like, I'm going, I'm going to talk to them, and I remember she got up and she did the speech, and her son was he's in his wheelchair, and he was just rapid attention. He never took his eyes off his mother. And that look on his face of just love and satisfaction and pride, that look on his face. I wish I took a picture, but it's burned into my brain, and I will never, ever forget it. And I know he died within 30 days. But that little boy, he was so proud of you. You should have no regrets there. He was rooting you on. So anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Thank you guys for being so vulnerable, for sharing these amazing nuggets, not just with the people in the room, but those who are actually live streaming. Ms. Hazel, would you like to share?
It is so important that if you have any thoughts or ideas about getting into politics, that you serve on commission, that you participate in your parent, that your school, that you are well versed and have knowledge of the position that you are planning to run for. And you get that from serving on commissions, or working on committees, working on boards. And it's very important as a community that you decide if more than one person of color wants to run, that perhaps you need to sit down and talk about it. Because many times, several of us will be encouraged to run for the same position. That is a setup to give it to the opposition. And therefore, sometimes we have to set our egos aside and say, I'll wait, and I will support you. I want to thank the panelists for the outstanding job that they have done. I'd like to thank Alpha Kappa Beta Omega for sponsoring this wonderful forum. At this time, we will ask our president to come back, and so that we'll be closing out. Yes.
It's very important, the number one thing, we have the lowest voter registration at this particular time. We need to get out to vote. It's very important. That vote, don't think that vote doesn't count, because it could be the one vote that puts that candidate over. So your vote does count. So we need to get out to vote. This is crucial. It's nothing to play with. Thank you.
Hello again. I want to first just thank these three dynamic women. Earlier I said I knew you were going to bring it. You definitely brought it. When this table talk was brought to the fruition by one of our national programs, Advocate for Justice, and Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated has always been in the forefront of social justice, of politics, and it is just so heartwarming to hear that even though each of you sometimes felt that you were the only one at the table, there was nobody else in the room that looked like you, you may have had some other pressing issues or needs going on a personal life with your family, friends, everything that goes along with just being an African American woman, you guys have stood the test. So I definitely, and I'm sure all of you in the audience, those of you watching online, have taken some nuggets from these. Fill that kitchen cabinet. It definitely takes a village. And again, on behalf of Kappa Beta Omega chapter, we thank you for sharing all the behind the scenes that goes on, because the three of you make it look easy. Thank you. And thank you to our two moderators, Ms. Wilson, Ms. Nix. You've done a wonderful job. And thank you for all of you, those of you in person and watching online, for just taking the time out of this beautiful Sunday afternoon to come and listen to these very important women. We hope that you have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you soon. Take care.